Lovely. Good morning. Thanks for everyone for joining us. If you're in the UK on your half-term break, we're aware that sometimes it's a bit hit and miss in terms of who's around and who's not. It's a good time to travel for you teachers. So, thanks for taking some time out of your break, your hard-earned rest, to join us to learn a bit more about what CRT work is like in Australia. So we'll get started. We'll jump right in. And we'll do a little bit of introductions first. So my name is Annika. Some of you might have spoken to me already and just kind of had that chat with me about your interest in teaching to Oz. A bit of a brief intro to me. I am based in our Bristol office, and I'm the Senior Global Opportunities Consultant based here in the UK, supporting educators from most of the UK making the journey over to Australia. I am originally from Canada. So I was trained as a teaching assistant there to work within SEN schools with SEN children mostly. So I worked within kind of a lot of SEN schools in Australia when I made the journey to Melbourne in 2018 with ANZ UK. And then after doing some traveling, I made the journey over to Bristol with ANZ UK as well to work here as a TA as well. So I've done the transition a couple of times over with the company, and they've been great every time. And I've been internal now to supporting educators traveling since January 2022. So coming up on, or just been 3 years as of now. So that's a bit about my journey, and I'll let my colleague Corey introduce herself.
Yeah. So my name is Corey. If you can't tell from the accents and from the pictures, Annika and I are sisters. So I am based in our Wales office here in Newport. I'm also a global opportunities consultant. I primarily support educators from Ireland making the move over, but also from Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK occasionally as well. Similar story to Annika here. I am obviously from Canada as well, and I have worked as a teaching assistant in both Canada and the UK, in both Bristol and in Wales. And I've now been supporting educators making the journey to Australia for just about 2 years now. So we'll jump right into the webinar here. Just a brief overview of what we are going to be covering. We will do a quick introduction to ANZ UK, so you get to know a little bit more about us and the agency, why move overseas, things like that. We'll talk about making the journey, things like visa information and teaching registrations. And then we'll get into the thick of it with what is CRT, how do you want to prep for that day, and what to expect when you are working as a CRT educator. Best locations for the CRT opportunities and where you want to be based at around Australia, how to actually get around, transportation, things like that, the process of making the journey overall, just a quick overview of what that looks like, and then we'll dive into some questions and things afterwards as well.
Question note as well, if anything does pop up that you don't want to forget throughout the webinar, please feel free to pop it into the chat. We might try and address it during the webinar if we can, but we'll definitely try to get to it at the end. So yeah, feel free to put that in the chat whenever you'd like. Brilliant. So a bit of an intro to ANZ UK Education and who we are. So we were founded, 21 years ago, just about now, in 2004. So it's been just over 20 years that we have been in operation. We are a global company. We now have over 400 staff globally between the United Kingdom, Canada, America, New Zealand, and Australia. So that means we do have over 21 offices kind of around the world. We do have some in Europe as well for some of our remote team members. So what we have been focusing on over the last 20 years is sending educators kind of between different countries to expand their careers and their experiences and help them make those journeys abroad. So in particular, we send a lot of educators back and forth between the UK and Australia. We have a lot of educators going from Canada again to UK and Australia, lots of back and forth movement there. So it's lovely to see other people also experiencing the joy of teaching in other countries. This is a little bit about our promise and what we, want to deliver to you, to all of our educators, no matter what. So we always operate by our Be Great values. So you can see there kind of what the Be Great encompasses. And we live and breathe by this. We've got values up on our walls and offices all the time. And we all have our favorite value as well that we kind of really stick to and everything. So we're always adhering by our values, and so you're getting that same experience. And we always strive for that exceptional experience with that. So every educator is unique. This ties into our motto as well: right educator, right place, right time. Every educator is unique. It's not a cookie cutter industry, like every teacher has their preference, and there are going to be different classrooms that fit each educator the best. So our promise is to make sure we're placing you in the settings that mean the most to you, where you feel you have the most impact and you're enjoying yourself the most. So that is our promise to you. Why teach abroad? So there's a whole lot of reasons why teaching abroad is fantastic and what you can gain out of it. In terms of personal growth, it is fantastic. I love to refer as my time in Australia as one of the most kind of challenging, rewarding, eye-opening years of my life. I had such a great time when I was in Australia. I was only going to stay for 6 months, ended up staying for a year, tried to scramble at the end to see if I could stay for more. Didn't pan out, unfortunately, but it was one of the best experiences I've ever had. I literally wouldn't be here in the UK if I hadn't been to Australia. So it's a great way to kind of put yourself out of your comfort zone and just learn more about yourself, have those unique experiences, get to know what other cultures are like, have that chance to live in a new country. Very fun that way. Teaching abroad is a great way to also develop your career. So having that experience working across, different schools in different countries is very desirable to schools and to head teachers, especially if you're looking for roles if you come back and anything. You can learn so much from educators in those other countries too, because their curriculums can be a little bit different. They have different ways of approaching things. So it's a great way to build your toolbox. And it is really financially rewarding as well. So other countries, pay teachers differently. So teaching abroad can be really financially rewarding. You can make enough money to save, travel, definitely pay your bills, things like that. So it's great to be able to have that experience and to try that out. It's a fantastic way to meet other people too. I have loads of friends that's, in Australia and around the world that I've still in contact with from my time being there. And it's wonderful to meet other traveling educators and know you've got that community. There's loads of expats as well across Australia. So you're never far from home in that regard. There's always people that you can meet up with and have that slice of home. But the educator community that we have as well is really fantastic. So it's a great way to meet people from Canada, America, New Zealand, Ireland, UK, just everybody. And you can just build that connection of people from around the world who are also in the same shoes as you and have the same values and goals.
So we'll get straight into the kind of technical admin side of the information here as well. First things first, obviously, to work in Australia, you do need to have working rights. So the primary visa that most educators do start out on for their first trip to Australia, their first time living there, is going to be that working holiday visa, the 417 for UK and Irish passport holders. That one is a really great way to just get you over there and get you started. If you do have a Irish passport or a European passport, it gives you a year outright. You can always do the specified work to stay longer. If you have a UK passport, actually, you get to really put that to use. You can stay for up to 3 years in Australia on that visa without having to do any of that specified regional work. So really use that to your advantage as well. You got lots of options. The next step up from that one is going to be the skilled worker visas. There's a few different iterations of those visas, so always look into which one is the best for you. But those are essentially permanent residency visas. If you are thinking this is the move, I am going there and I am making that my home, then that is a really great option to go for as well. If you do have dependents, family members, or children or anything like that coming with you, you would have to go on a skilled worker visa. And they do give you a lot more kind of long-term possibilities for working rights as well, which is great. Or of course, if you do have Australian or New Zealand citizenship, if you have a sneaky passport that you can put to use, do it. Obviously, use that to your advantage and we can get you out there for as long as you want to go or whatever works best for you. Now, in terms of the actual teaching qualifications that you do have to hold to be able to teach in Australia, it is worth noting that they do love their red tape. There is going to be some application processes to go through to be able to teach in Australia. They do require that you have a minimum of 4 years of tertiary education, so that can be a 3-year bachelor's degree and a 1-year PGCE. It can be a 4-year bachelor's of education, so long as 1 year was dedicated towards teaching and that you were able to study for a full 4 years, and you are able to transfer that over. If you do have a type of qualification such as a SKIT, Schools Direct, Teach First, or an employment-based qualification such as like an IPGCE, it is worth speaking with us about that directly, and make sure that you do mention that in your conversation with your global consultant. Those ones sometimes transfer over a little bit differently, and they can sometimes have some difficulties being accepted by the Australian authorities. So it is just worth bringing that up and finding out more about what kind of goes into that process. Now, those teaching authorities, every Australian state does have their own, so you would have to register based on where you are going to be traveling to. Every teaching registration is just a little bit different, so we can walk through all of those with you. It is necessary to hold that teaching registration to have any form of teaching position. So whether it's casual teaching or a permanent position, they do need to have that on file to be able to accept you into the school and on a roll. The only ones who do not need that teaching registration are teaching assistants. So if you're going as a teaching assistant, no need to worry about doing any of that paperwork. You just get to rock up and you're good to go. Now, as for the CRT itself, what is it? What is this acronym? In Australia, they love their acronyms, so you hear quite a few of them along the way. CRT stands for Casual Relief Teaching or Casual Relief Teacher. It's essentially their phrase, their term for a supply or a substitute teacher. So if you're coming from Ireland or Australia, you'll know it as substitute teaching. In the UK, of course, it is supply. It's essentially the same thing, except when you're doing it through an agency like ANZ UK, it's a little bit more custom to you. So we get to be a little bit more choosy and say, you know what, I think this school in particular would be the right fit for you. Or you get to say, love that one and I learned from that one, but let's try something new, and pick and choose along the way and really build your own kind of ideal role. Most educators starting out with CRT, it does tend to begin as a day-to-day kind of role. The team might call you up first thing in the morning and say, hey, this is the school for the day. What do you think about this? And they'll give you all the details, tell you everything that you need to know and expect, and then give you the option, of course, to say yes or no to any of those roles offered. From there, though, a lot of the time what happens is you might go around to a handful of schools and they will call us back and say that they loved having you on board and they want to have you come back regularly. So you will get pre-bookings as well, where those schools have asked for you in advance, and the team will let you know maybe a couple of days, maybe a week ahead of time, and kind of go from there. Now, it might start out as being 1 day in one school or 2 days in another school just to begin with, but a lot of the time that can also fall under the umbrella of block bookings. So you can be in a CRT role where you might be in the school for a week or 2 weeks or even, the whole month. But it is still technically casual relief because you are not on a contract with the school directly.
Yeah, that's great. So how do you prepare for a day of CRT? So if you've not done supply work before or substitute work in, the UK or Ireland, or if you're Canadian, if you've not done any kind of sub work there, this is how you prepare. So as Corey mentioned, a lot of the time to start with, you're going to be called up quite early in the morning. So we're going to talk a bit about that and how to kind of make sure you're ready to go in the morning. So when you land in Australia and you've met our team that is based there, they're going to give you access to what's called our Ready to Work app. Now, this connects directly to our bespoke platform where we use that to book placements with schools and get in contact with educators and do various other kind of compliance things as well. So no other agency has access to this platform. It's ours specifically. We had it kind of tailored to us, which is great. And we have an app that matches with that. So in the app, you have access to your calendar. So if you decide maybe, 1 week you want to take a cheeky long weekend or get into middle of the term and you're thinking, oh, I could use just a few days on the beach with no kids, great. Put it in the calendar, book it off, good to go. You have total flexibility with CRT work, which is great. So utilizing that app is going to be very important to communicate with the team when you are and when you are not available, because when we see that you aren't available, we're not going to call you. We're not going to bug you. You don't want any phone calls when you're sleeping in and going to the beach that day. Totally fine. We won't call you. So utilizing that is definitely the first step. The night before you're kind of anticipating any calls, get yourself organized. This is so helpful. I can tell you from experience, I had a couple days when I was doing supply TA work in Melbourne that I did not get myself prepared the night before, and then I was kind of scrambling in the morning or had to pick up lunch on the way or pop out of school at lunchtime to pick something up, and it was a little bit hectic. So pick out your outfit. It's good to have something a little bit more kind of smart casual prepared. If you're a teaching assistant, you can get away with things that are a little bit more casual because you're going to be doing a bit more hands-on stuff. If you're a PE specific teacher, you can kind of have things lined up to support mostly with that. But on a whole, just having something kind of smart casual, really handy. Just have a go-to outfit and it'll be perfect. Get that prepared and picked out the night before. Make your lunch, pack your bags with all your essentials. If you like to bring a book with you, do stuff like that. If you like to have I like to keep a little packet with extra hair ties, the essentials, things like that, little things. You want to make sure you've got your VIT card as well once that has come back before you go to school. Make sure it's in your wallet or in your bag, as well as your working with children check card, especially if you are a teaching assistant. So working with children check is equivalent to a DBS or Garda vetting, things like that. So make sure you've got those cards in your bag, ready to go. Leave them there at all times. On the morning of work, you want to be up pretty early by 7 a.m. If you're an early riser, it's a very popular lifestyle in Australia to get up, quite early in the morning, go for a run, go for a swim, then head to work. So you could be up quite early, pop to the gym, do a quick session, and then be ready for some phone calls around 7 a.m. You can pop back onto the app and let us know if you are awake and ready to go. You can do what's called early birding. So you pop on and you literally press a green button that says, yep, I'm up and ready to work. If you wake up and you're feeling pretty poorly, maybe like, oh yeah, you know what? I think if I were to go to work today, I'd feel probably worse. I'm coming down with a bug. Pop on the app, not ready to work today, or you're not available. Absolutely fine. Just let us know. All good. But always, feel free to pop on as soon as you're ready and let us know, yep, I'm ready to go to work. As soon as the schools call us to let us know kind of what they need for the day, we will get in touch with you. So we're going to call you directly to tell you what's available for the day. There might be a couple options too, and we might run them both past you. And you might decide like, oh yeah, you know what, that one sounds a little bit more fun than this one potentially, or this one's maybe a little bit closer. I'm feeling a little bit tired today. We'll do that. So something along those lines. So we will make sure that everything's communicated to you over the phone initially though. Now, after you confirm a booking for the day or maybe the next couple of days, we will email and text you a confirmation, but you're also going to see the booking in your calendar on the app. So this is where it comes in handy as well to see kind of prior bookings as well and current stuff for the day. If you do then get pre-booked as well, so say you've done a couple of weeks of like day-to-day, maybe you had a couple of weeks where you're in like 2 different schools each week, and then one of them goes, oh yeah, you know what? We know that our year 2 teacher is going to be on leave. Needs to get a surgery, like a knee surgery done or something like that. We loved having, so and so in from the UK. Why don't we book them in for those kind of 2 weeks while we know that the teacher's going to be out? And then you'll be able to see the pre-bookings in your calendar as well. But again, we'll always call you to let you know what's been requested too. So once you have been sent your confirmation and you know where you're going, head on out, hop in the metro, grab a coffee because it's fantastic in Australia, and you go smash the day. So quite straightforward that way. That's the best way to prepare. So just don't skip the steps. If you're thinking the night before, oh yeah, no, I'll be fine. I kind of know what I need to grab, whatever. Just do it. It's so much more helpful. Definitely worth it. So those are our best kind of tips and tricks around that. Now, in terms of what to expect from the day and what the CRT work is going to actually look like in the schools. We do have a few different types of settings we work with. So these are some of the schools that you could expect to be like placed in or called out to. So we have independent and private schools. So, just fairly similar to what we would see here in the UK and Ireland, standard kind of independent schools that way. A lot of government and public schools as well. They're quite lovely. I worked primarily in public schools in Australia and I really enjoyed it. They were really, really fun. There are also a lot of faith-based schools. So there's various faith-based schools that we work with. And then we also work with a lot of SCN specific schools. So in particular, in a couple of cities we work with, there are some like autism schools, for example. So lots of options that way. You could go to anywhere. If you're not super keen on SEN, absolutely fine. But we do always kind of say, hey, it might be worth being open to a little bit of SEN because they're always in demand. They always need teachers. And it can be a really good way to expand, your toolkit, your knowledge base. Just get some experience in those SEN schools that way in a really casual way. The SEN schools in Australia are quite different compared to the UK as well. So it's worth trying out and seeing how you find it. Now, for secondary teachers, when you head out to school, we definitely try to make sure that we are getting you into your subject-specific roles. So especially if you're teaching anything like English, maths, sciences, things like that, you are going to be subject-specific for the majority of the time. But there are also days where, they'll need general cover secondary teachers as well. So in that case, the work will be provided for you. Don't have to worry about doing any of that. That just could be what you expect. If there isn't a whole lot of secondary work going like that day, like potentially toward the beginning of the year or toward the end of the year, if the secondary work is getting a little bit quiet, you do have the option to also work in primary schools and SEN schools, but you don't have to if you wouldn't like to. But there's that option for you just in case you wanted to try it out. For primary teachers, we have both, we have mainstream cover mostly then, and then we do also have some optional SEN cover too. It is worth being open to SEN because again, there's quite a lot going in terms of that. But usually as well for the primary teachers, your work is going to be provided for you. What you need to complete with the class will be provided for you for that day. Now, what the day looks like. So the schools, the school hours are very similar to what we would expect here in the UK and Ireland. You're going to be there kind of between, 8:30 to 3:30. It can vary by half an hour on each side. But if a school starts at 8:30, we would just say, please be there by 8. If the school starts at 9, please be there by 8:30, that kind of thing. So each school is a little bit different that way, and they will usually finish off the day about 3 or 3:30. Once you get there, you will be greeted by a designated staff member. So usually there is someone who kind of like sorts all supply teachers. Usually one of the receptionists at the school. So they'll greet you there when you arrive. They'll direct you to kind of where you need to sign up or sign in. They'll give you any passes that you need, things like that. When you chat with them as well, they'll usually give you some kind of idea of what the work is that you'll need to deliver that day, to give you an idea of how to run the technology for the classroom, get onto the computer, things like that. If you are doing any block placements, so if you're potentially doing anything like maybe 2 or more weeks, you may need to do some planning and prep work for the classes and everything as well. If lesson planning is involved, you will be notified and you will be given access to the curriculum and what the students have been working on for the year to help you work out the lesson plans. So won't be left high and dry or anything by any means. You will be given all the resources that you need to help prepare lesson plans. But that's usually only if you're doing like block placements, kind of particularly between kind of that maybe 2 to 4 to maybe potentially even 6 weeks. So it will always be communicated with you though, and you will be made aware of that. Now at the end of the supply day, you want to ensure that all the students have left safely and they've made it out of the school and gotten home kind of all right. I mean, I suppose you can't determine if they've gotten home, but just make sure they've left safely and there's no more students around. Make sure that any potential work is sorted. It might need to be marked, but definitely make sure any work you did in the day is sorted and easily accessible for the class teacher to find when they come back. Make sure the classroom is tidy and just kind of things were how you found them in the morning as much as you can, all that good stuff. You'll hand back your passes to the reception. Any technology you might need to give back, like laptops and things, you'll make sure that they've got all of that. And then you head home or off to the beach or down to the park or wherever you want to head out and enjoy the rest of your day. I used to love doing that when I was doing supply work as a TA in Melbourne. I'd come home and I'd go for a little walk around. I would normally buy myself a little sushi roll on the way home from work as a bit of a pre-dinner snack, which was really fun. I'd go take my books out and go read in the park for a little while, pop down to the beach. I was at the beach so much when I was there, and I was so tan. I've never been that tan since. So it's great. You'll have lots of opportunities to do all those fun things.
Amazing. Definitely sounds nice when it is this time of year and that cold. But yeah. In terms of locations, obviously it's great to know where these types of opportunities are available across Australia. Our two main locations for the CRT work are in both Melbourne and in Sydney. Both are quite consistently relying on CRT, especially as a way to just introduce you to the schools, as a way to just kind of get you out into work. So it's a great option in both locations. If you're going to either one, it can also be used as a preemptive to find new contracts as well if you're kind of looking into that. So it's a good way to just get settled in either city. But there's plenty of casual work available in both Melbourne and in Sydney. So you can also just rely on teaching casually the whole time that you are in either city. If you are going to be going as a teaching assistant, we do highly recommend that you go to Melbourne. We do have lots of teaching assistant opportunities available there, but not so much in other locations, just for a variety of reasons. But in Melbourne, there's plenty of work available, especially in those SEN settings. But we can talk more about that in our kind of one-to-one conversations. Now, if you are not a primary, secondary, or SEN teacher, if you are an early childhood teacher, so you work with children below the age of 5, specifically in kind of nurseries or creches, then we can actually support you in a few other locations as well. So you still have Melbourne and Sydney available to you, but you could also go to somewhere like Perth, South Australia in Adelaide there, or up to Queensland and kind of like the Brisbane area as well. And there is casual work in all of those locations for early childhood teachers available as well. So wherever kind of suits you best, let us know. We can talk through the differences about each location. We have a city by city guide if you are trying to figure out where is the best place for you to go based off of things like housing and the weather, the important things that you're going to experience every day. So definitely ask us about that one as well if you are kind of deciding between a few different spots. If you are going to Melbourne as well, the work is actually so busy as a casual relief teacher over there that we can actually potentially offer an ambassador contract as well. So what that ambassador contract entails is that on a term-by-term basis, we can guarantee a certain amount of work per week for that term. Now, this does fluctuate throughout the year and has a few different factors involved. So you might need to be a little bit more open-minded to perhaps the subjects that you're teaching, the age range that you're teaching, maybe open to trying out that SEN as well, like we were mentioning earlier. But if you're really flexible on your side, then we are going to guarantee work on our side. So what that means is, especially between the months of April through to October when the work is really busy and there's plenty of kind of schools in demand at the moment, then we can offer, say, between 3 to 5 days of work per week that is guaranteed. And if we are not able to find you a role for a certain day that we did promise, then we would still be able to pay you for that day because we are so sure that we can get you out to work.
And just on top of the investor contract a little bit as well, there are some kind of minimum standards in terms of being eligible for that. We can speak to you about that in detail as well when we have one-to-one chats. Unfortunately, it's not available for teaching assistants. It is for primary, secondary teachers, but we can chat through, opportunities and how busy this school year is and things, and just what would be the best time to arrive as well. On that, I do. Oh, sorry. Not yet. I got ahead of myself. Back to you, Corey.
Oh, good. So with where to live and how to get around, for each of these locations, especially if you're going to early childhood, we can talk a little bit more specifically about the other cities as well. But for Melbourne and Sydney in particular, we do actually have specific area guides and maps to help you with finding out the best place to live within the city to get you out to work as easily as possible. Obviously, when you go to somewhere like Sydney, everybody is thinking straight away, I want to go to Bondi Beach, get me out to Coogee, and I totally get why. But it is worth knowing that there are areas that are going to be a bit more competitive. They're going to be a little bit more expensive for housing, and sometimes the transportation links aren't as good in and out of those areas as well. So we do have certain recommended areas and plenty of resources to help you find out where is the best place to get you accommodation, not just for the work, but also for cost of living and transportation as well. In both cities, it's not necessary to have a car. Most of our educators do rely off of public transport, especially when you are getting started out. There are plenty of trains, trams, buses available wherever you go. So you've got plenty of access to different parts of the city. It's just being aware that you are going to be located near a bus stop or near a train station or whatever it is so that you can quickly figure out your route to get to work. And the team will also help you with navigating that system and how long your commute is going to be before they do offer you that role. But like I said, on there you can actually see the Sydney map that we have kind of live and going, and we change it all the time. We keep it updated, so you can always look in, click on the different areas, see which kind of neighborhoods are listed in there and the reasons why there might be the right one for you.
Okay, thanks, Lori. So now we're going to chat through some of the different term times and kind of what to expect during the year in terms of what's available work-wise and when could be the best times to arrive. So the Australian school year runs differently to the North American, European school years, the basically Northern Hemisphere. So because their summers are their years are opposite, they structure the school year different. So currently they're coming out of summer, they're going into autumn as we slowly trickle into spring. So right now, they just started back to term one in the last couple of weeks. So term one will run from like the very end of January until about usually early April, mid-April. Kind of depends on where Easter falls in the year. So for term one, supply work can be fairly quiet until about early March. So their February is akin to our September here in the UK and Ireland and Europe and Canada and everything. So that does mean that, like here in the UK, especially like we do see within our agency here, that September is always usually quite quiet because schools are figuring out where the gaps are, and it takes a couple weeks for that New Year bug to settle in and everything, right? So we do find September is fairly quiet for supply work here as well. So their February is akin to our September, so it's going to be really quiet. So we usually say from kind of like week 3, 4 onward in the term, it usually becomes much busier. We would say the work usually ranges from about typically 2 to 4 days a week. Sometimes it can get up to 5 days a week toward the end of term one, but usually it's about on average kind of 2 to 4 days a week for term one. So it's very popular for educators to arrive in January, which is absolutely fine. We can definitely support you with that. No problem at all. We just want you to be aware that this is kind of what to expect and in terms of how busy the work is. Now, one thing to note as well is that the Australian school system, they run their term breaks a little bit differently to what we would see here in the UK and Ireland and everything. So rather than doing half-term breaks like we are currently in at the moment, they would go straight through for one whole term, anywhere from 7 to 10 weeks. And then they have a 2-week break in between each term. So once they break up in April, they'll have a couple-week break and they'll usually go back for term 2 around the end of April. So late April, they'll be back in school, and term 2 will run until early July. Now, term 2 is very busy. There's going to be 5 days of work a week available. It's all like full steam ahead, all systems go, lots of work going. So great time to arrive, take advantage of that. Term 3 is very similar. Now, term 3 runs from late July to mid to late September, depending on the year. And again, it's also very busy. So you're looking at working every day. Like it's lots and lots and lots going on. So we can guarantee in some locations that 5 days of work a week. In term 1, we might guarantee potentially 3 days a week, depending on what point we are in the term, maybe 3, 4 days. In terms 2, we will guarantee 5 days a week. It is so busy. Now, term 4 is the final term of the year, and they start term 4 early October and they run to about mid-December. So there are discrepancies between each state as well, just so you are aware in terms of exactly when each term starts, because it would be mayhem if every state had the same 2 weeks off all the time. So there are some discrepancies, similar to how we would see like between England and Wales. I know like most schools in England are on term break at the moment. Schools in Wales currently aren't. They're going to be next week. So it's kind of similar to that. So term 4 could be starting anywhere from kind of early to mid-October, and then all schools finish the school year mid-December. Now, term 4 is very busy to start with, so that October, November time can be quite busy. We can still guarantee usually up to 5 days a week, but as November kind of fades out, we move into December, it gets a little bit quieter. So we look to kind of guarantee you about 3-ish days a week, depending on what you're doing. So secondary teachers, they're going to find that the school year actually ends a little bit earlier for them anyways, because the last couple of weeks where primary kids are still in school, secondary students are doing their exams. So around that point, secondary work is really quiet. So that's where you might want to consider doing some primary placements and things like that. But typically October, November can be quite busy if you are arriving in time. If you're going to arrive in November, unfortunately, there's probably not going to be much we can get you out to at that point. You're probably going to have to wait until term 1. But if you're arriving like, September, early October, we can get you out for that busy period still.
And the beauty of doing CRT as well, and this is a question that we do have come up quite a bit, is obviously people know that the school year starts in January, so they kind of expect that they need to start in January as well. The beauty of CRT is that you can really go any point during the year that works best for you. If you wanted to wait until the school year finishes here and go off in July or August and get some work done in kind of term 3 and get the busy end of that term, then that's fantastic, and we can absolutely support you. It's really flexible that way. You don't have to be waiting till the start of a term or the start of the school year to actually get out to work. And if you are able to work a little bit earlier in the year, so during the 2 busier terms in term 2 and in term 3, it's a really great opportunity for you to do a little bit of that networking and say you've been around to about 5 different schools. They all want to have you back, and so that during term 4 when things are a little bit quieter, that those schools are going to prefer to have you rather than maybe somebody who's just getting there. That's part of the reason why it's a little bit harder to arrive during that kind of late term 4. And the SEN opportunities, again, they do stay consistent pretty much throughout the year. They're going to be a little bit more reliable right up until the end of the academic year. So if you're open-minded to those, it does help us keep you busy throughout that term as well.
And if you're wanting to start on CRT work to build up your knowledge of the Australian school system, shop around a bit and find the schools that are the best fit for you, being there for term 4 is also a really good way to kind of build those connections and potentially move into contracts if that's what you're looking for later down the line. So if you're thinking, I want to do maybe a term or 2 of CRT, get my feet wet, have some time to travel, some flexibility, things like that, and then maybe move into something a little bit more consistent, term 4 is a great time to be there, because schools are often looking to hire those term 1 contracts at that point. So it's good to be there, building those connections, potentially be there for some interviews and things as well. So it's a really great way, again, to network and just get a feel for everything. Brilliant. So this is a lot of information, and there's quite a bit of information that goes into making the journey. So what are some of the resources we provide you with to help you with the journey? So once you speak to us, we'll run through everything that you'll need to know. We'll run through timelines and everything, and we are always here for you to ask questions and get in touch with and just clarify anything, or just reach out whenever you need. But we will always send you a few kind of non-negotiables after we chat to you. So one thing not listed was we send you links to kind of visas and things that could be the best fit, or if you want information about more long-term visas, we make sure you know where to go to speak to somebody about that. But then we also send you state registration blogs. So as Corey mentioned at the beginning, as a teacher, you will have to register in whichever state you're going to be based in. So we have blogs detailing those applications to help you navigate that. If you're a teaching assistant, we'll make sure you've got your links to your children check and things like that. And then we also, again, provide you area guides. So if you want to weigh up a couple different locations or you know where you're going, you just need some help on what suburb to be based in, we'll send you area guides and you can look through all of that to know that you're choosing an area and a location that's going to be best for you. We also have our Teaching in Australia info pack, which we update every year. And that includes, all the things you're going to need in terms of like when the terms lay out for the year, what to do in terms of trying to get onto Medicare, how to start a bank account, how to get your tax number, where to get your phone SIM from, all that good stuff. All the admin that can be easy to forget, but really important. So that's all included in there, websites to use and finding places to rent, everything, all based off of our own personal experiences as well. So it's going to be tried and true. We do also continually offer monthly webinars like this one. They are recorded and put onto YouTube, so you can access YouTube and watch old recordings as well from whenever you'd like. But we do offer new ones kind of each month. So we have some coming up about, early childhood education and how that works, and a general kind of teaching in Australia webinar where we talk a bit more about, registrations and how that works and everything. We also offer in-person events both here in the UK and in Australia. So we offer kind of a variety of events here where there's wellness events, teacher wellness events, pre-departures, so you can meet educators before you leave. But we also offer welcome events in like Sydney and Melbourne too, so you can get to meet other educators from lots of other countries who've also just made the journey over. And you have loads of people then to connect with and share your journey with. And then we also offer 360 support. So we are just one element of your journey. We work in tandem with the teams in Australia, and they support you with finding the work, and they help you with navigating what to expect when you arrive. And we work really closely with them to make sure the journey is seamless for you.
Amazing. So in terms of how this whole process works, how does ANZ UK actually get you from this webinar, from being at home in the UK and Ireland, over to actually in those classrooms and in those CRT roles in Australia? The first thing you're going to want to do is actually speak with our global team. So it might be myself, it might be Annika, or a couple other of our team members here as well. And we're going to chat with you about your plans, your qualifications, what the kind of overview is going to look like for you in particular. We can kind of go through what we might need to, specifically look at in terms of getting your paperwork ready and things like that. From that conversation, we'll also give you a bit of a breakdown of your timeline. So we do recommend that you do have a conversation with us around 6 to 12 months before you want to go. That's kind of ideal to make sure that the process is as smooth and easygoing as possible. If you are going in 2 weeks, we'll still help you out. Don't stress that way, but obviously the earlier you can speak with us, the better, just to make it as seamless as possible. Once you are around the point of kind of getting your visa sorted, so if you're applying for the working holiday visa, we say around 6 months before you go is a great time to apply. Once that is in process or approved, then we can also pass you details along to the local team in Australia in the location that you are hoping to teach in. So whether that's Melbourne, Sydney, or elsewhere. They are going to have a conversation with you a little bit more specifically about what to expect when you get there. So any kind of paperwork that they're going to need on their end, any kind of just last minute admin bits, they'll have you schedule an in-person meeting so that when you do arrive, you can come into the office, and then you'll have support from both the global team over here and from the Australian team as well. Now, your global consultant is also going to talk through compliance. So we'll do things like references and getting you ready for your teaching registration process. Any and all of those questions can come through to the global team. Once you do have your kind of flights booked and you've arrived in Australia, you're going to go into the meeting in the local office in Australia. You'll have that sit down with them, make sure that you have all of your bits ready. So your TFN, your tax file number there, your teacher registration is approved, ready to go. Whatever it is, all of that is ready to go. They will say that you are clear for work once your references are done and any of those kind of registrations come back. And then we can get you out and into the classroom straight away.
Fantastic. So thank you very much for joining us. We've come to the end of the webinar now. So we really appreciate you being here over your term break and taking that time out from your well-deserved rest. please let us know if you have any questions. We can stay on for a little bit longer and answer any questions that you may have and chat through anything. After the webinar in the next couple of days, you will receive an email as well with a link to the recording and an opportunity to chat to myself or Corey or one of our team members. And we can, if you haven't spoken to us already, and we will discuss what to expect then in terms of your journey and kind of how everything is going to look for your specific circumstances and whatnot. So you'll have that detailed support along the whole way from at least one person, not two. So you've always got someone to come back to and ask questions of and everything as well. We're always happy to help. We'll give a couple more minutes just in case anybody has any questions to share.
And the chat is linked at the top on the bar there as well if you do want to pop anything in the chat there. If not, you're also welcome to email us at any point and we can answer your questions a little bit more specifically in the call or over email.
Wonderful. All right. Well, I'm not sure there's any questions then, but thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time to be here, and we look forward to speaking with you all really soon.
Thanks.